There's this version of saving money that makes your life feel miserable and boring, but that's not what this is. My wife and I do these 10 things that other people might think are a little extreme, but it saved us a ton and we still enjoy our lives. My name's Obi, and I worked in asset management for a Fortune 100 financial firm before leaving to start a business helping people with their finances. And these 10 things that I'm going to be talking about are things that I'm actively doing that are saving me real money. And I'll share some of the real trade-offs that I've noticed with them, so you can decide which ones work best for you. The first one is that I get my books for free through an app called Libby. Libby connects to your public library card. You add your card in the app, you search for a book, you check it out, and it downloads to your device. You can find plenty of free audiobooks as well. And when your loan ends, it just returns itself. And I recently got a Kindle and I can send library books straight to it, so I'm reading on an e-reader for free. Now, I've been using Libby for about 8 years now, and if every one of those 50 plus books costs $10, that's over $500, and many books can cost more than double that. But the money isn't the main thing here. Those books changed how I think about work, money, faith, my marriage, most of which I would have paid for. I just didn't have to. The cost is that the popular titles sometimes have a wait list. Sometimes you're number 12 in line for something you want right now, so you either wait or you read something else in the meantime, which is what I typically do. The second one is that my wife and I default to cooking instead of eating out. One of my favorite places to eat is Chipotle. A bowl there runs about $11 or $12, and if you add chips and a drink, you're easily around $15 or $16. Buy those ingredients from somewhere like Costco and cook them yourself, and you're making that meal for around $3 or $4. But here's what I didn't expect about this one. When we cook, we're in the kitchen together. We clean up together, we eat at our own table instead of in a room packed full of other people, and it's quieter and more relaxed, and we get a great opportunity to talk. Some of the best conversations we've had have happened over food we made ourselves. Learning to be a decent cook has taken time, which is a real cost. Nobody's good at it right away, and there were plenty of meals early on that weren't great. But it's a skill that keeps paying, and it's been fun to build it together. The third one is that when I'm making plans with friends, I'm usually the one who suggests something inexpensive first. See, groups tend to go with a variation of the idea that gets suggested first. So if the first idea is a nice dinner, the group is probably going to a nice dinner. But if I say let's grab coffee or let's do lunch instead, or come over and we'll watch the game, that's usually where it lands. And I've rarely, if ever, gotten pushback on this one. Dinner with a tip and parking can easily run $70 or $80 for 2 people. A walk is free. A game night with pizza and chips and some salsa is maybe $20, and we end up still having a great time. And I still go out to dinner. I love going out to dinner. It just isn't the automatic answer. The thing I actually wanted was the time with those people and not the specific restaurant. The fourth one is that I basically never pay to check bags. Over the past few years, my wife and I have traveled quite a bit. Family up north, family out west, friends scattered all over the country. Check bag fees can run around $45 each way now, so almost $100 for a round trip. Do that a handful of times a year and you're shelling out real money. And here's the part that actually surprised me though. Even when I pack light, I usually don't wear everything I brought. So I was hauling all these extra clothes I didn't need that could have just stayed home for free. A few things make this work. We're usually staying with people, so there's a washer and a dryer, which means we can re-wear clothes. If something is bigger than the TSA limit for a carry-on, we buy the travel size. And on longer trips, we'll often just stop at a dollar store after we get there and pick up things like a full-size toothpaste for a couple of bucks instead of paying to bring ours in a checked bag. The cost is you have to be okay with less. Fewer options, fewer outfits, less margin. But we found we usually don't need it, and over the years, this one alone has saved us thousands. Number 5 is that when we pick places to travel, we usually pick a place where our friends and family members already live. My wife and I have family in Arizona, so instead of vacationing to, say, California and paying for a hotel and a rental car, we go to Arizona. Same great weather, same sunshine, and we get to see people that we don't get to see enough. I've also got a group of friends from college who ended up in all different places: Texas, Michigan, Georgia, Florida. Every year we do a trip, and instead of picking some neutral destination, we just go to whoever city we haven't explored yet. Nobody books a hotel, nobody rents a car, we cook at the house, and you're seeing the city with a tour guide who actually lives there, which is a completely different experience than following a list that you found online. The cost is you're giving up some choice. You're not picking the dream destination. You're picking where your people are. And if you don't have people scattered all over like we do, the idea underneath still holds. Pick a place that already has a reason for you to be there. For us, that's been the better trade almost every time. And if you're getting value out of this list, make sure to stick around to the end because the last one is one of the biggest money savers, and it's one that I rarely even think about. Number 6 is we let credit card points pay for a lot of our travel. And I know that on a list about spending less, this one might sound like the opposite of everything else, but because of how we use them, we've taken flights we didn't pay cash for and stayed in hotels that we didn't pay cash for either. A lot of the times we're just covering the taxes and that's it. Here's a major condition though. If carrying a balance is something you struggle with, this is not a habit to pick up. The interest will eat any points you earn and then some. We pay ours off in full every month and we've never carried a balance, and that's the main reason this works for us. And we mostly use the Chase Sapphire Preferred, the Freedom Unlimited, and the Freedom Flex. I put just about everything on a credit card instead of a debit card, which also means better fraud protection. Learning this, it took real work up front. Watching videos, understanding how point transfers work, and figuring out what's actually worth it. That's the cost, but it's opened doors to trips we probably wouldn't have taken otherwise. I'll leave links down below for those cards if you want to check them out. And if you do sign up using those links, I may receive a small commission, which does help support the channel, but only use them if they make sense for you. The 7th one is that we drive older cars that are completely paid off. They're not flashy, but they're reliable. I know exactly how they drive and they look presentable. Here's the thing about where we live. There are a lot of wealthy people not far from us. So on a regular basis, I'm sitting at a light next to cars that are incredibly nice and expensive. And I genuinely like cars. I think they're cool and I enjoy getting to look at them. I just don't have to insure these super expensive cars. I don't have to maintain them, don't have to worry about a scratch in a parking lot or make a payment on any of them. Not having a car note gives us breathing room, and it's part of why I could take a risk when starting my own business. That flexibility is worth more to me than a nicer car would be. Number 8 is that we buy used and we sell used. When I was younger, I had this mindset that everything I purchased needed to be new. I felt like if something was used, it automatically meant that it was inferior. When we moved into our place after getting married, we needed a dining table that could seat 4 to 6 people because we love to host. Brand new sets were running $700 or $800, and truthfully, a lot of them didn't even look that great. So we started checking local consignment and secondhand shops. It took some patience, but we found a solid wood table that seats 4 to 6 for $40. It had a few scratches, but we cleaned it up, put a runner on it, and it looks good. Then we found our chairs on Facebook Marketplace for about $6 each. $65 total for something that would have run us $700 or $800 new. And there's freedom in that. Somebody's going to set a cup down without a coaster eventually. When you didn't pay a fortune for it, you don't care as much. We've had game nights and long conversations around that table, and it's served us well. Going the other direction, I had a bike sitting on our porch for a long time. It was too small for me and it hurt my knees, so it just sat there. We listed it for $100, and when the guy wanted it, we set the pickup at Costco. He checked it out, he Venmo'd us the money, and then we walked inside, and that money paid for our groceries that day. We decluttered the porch, somebody else got a bike that they wanted, and our shopping trip was covered. Just remember to stay safe, be smart, and know that there are some things that are best bought new. The 9th one is that any purchase outside our normal routine gets talked about first. Not groceries, not gas, but anything that isn't part of our usual spending. Even something around $25. My wife and I have a rule to talk about it before it happens. See, my wife isn't big into shopping, but recently she wanted 2 new pairs of shoes. One was under $20 and the other one was a little bit over, so maybe $40 total. And gratefully, $40 is not a decision that we have to agonize over. She really could have just bought them, but she asked me about it and we talked about it for maybe a minute and she got the shoes. The point isn't the $40. The point is the speed bump. It's a checkpoint that catches the purchases we're making because of how we feel in the exact moment. And it's saved us a serious amount of money over the years, mostly on things that we didn't even need. This doesn't have to be a spouse. It can be a close friend, a sibling, anyone you can be honest with about money. I know that without accountability, I can talk myself into just about anything, so I try to invite people in that I trust into every important area of my life. When I keep all my money decisions to myself, that's usually where I'm not at my best. And if you like learning about how to save and make better decisions with your money, I have a newsletter that I send out. In the newsletter, I go deeper on topics just like this. The sign up is in the link down below if you want to check it out. The 10th one is that I don't drink. Alcohol wasn't huge in our house growing up. I never saw my parents drink heavily, and I was told that my grandfather never drank at all. And by the time I got to high school and then college, I'd watched enough of what drinking did to people around me and decided that I didn't want it. playing Division 1 football, people assumed that I did. When they found out I didn't, it sometimes created this tension. Some people thought I was strange for it, and some people poked fun at me. But I've never really missed it. For the most part, I feel like I've always been able to connect with people, and I enjoy it more while being clear-headed. Financially, this one might be the largest number on the list, and it's the one I rarely ever think about. $40, $50, $70 on nights out over years adds up. That money going into savings and investing instead, that has compounded into real breathing room, and it's brought me a lot of peace. I'm not knocking anybody who drinks in moderation. It was just a decision that I made a long time ago that turned out to be one of the best ones yet. And it's opened up some genuinely meaningful conversations with people I may have only scratched the surface with. Add all 10 of these up over the years, and it's not a small number. It's a big part of how my wife and I have been able to save the way that we do without feeling like we're missing out on our lives. So if you cut out all of that, you might be wondering what's actually worth spending on. Check out this video on the screen where I break down 4 things I've spent real money on that gave me back far more than they cost. And a couple of them probably aren't what you'd expect. If this was helpful, make sure to hit the like button as it does support the channel. Subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.